And we all know what this really is. It's an attack on Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark's the wrong face for this league because her fans are so racist. Where have I heard this argument before?
It's been a lot of nonsense. I think in my 11-year career, I've never experienced the racial comments from the Indiana Fever fan base. We had her face on a serious matter that happened in this world, and it's unacceptable, honestly.
Alyssa Thomas was recently punished for a horrific racial assault on Caitlin Clark, and the tantrum that ensued was just humiliating. After a poor performance against the Indiana Fever in the first round of the playoffs, it appears she was unable to manage the heat. So, how did she handle her post-game interview? Instead of accepting responsibility, she chose to play the racism card out of thin air, directing all focus on Clark's admirers and accusing them of racism. If you're watching this video, there's a high chance you're a Caitlin Clark lover too. And now, Alyssa claims, you're also a racist. Thank you for informing us, Alyssa.
All of this conversation around Indiana Fever fans, it's all just misguided over-hatred of Caitlin Clark. And pointing the finger at those guys, they're the racists, when really, y'all are the racists.
It's incredible how blind someone can be to ignore Clark's astounding stats and believe it's all due of her skin tone. I mean, that blatant ignorance, right? You'd better be suspended then. But hey, do you know what she said that put her into this situation? Why is everyone turning on her, and will the league forgive her? Let us quickly get into the specifics.
The people coming up with excuses to hate Caitlin Clark and the new fan base that she brought. And justifying, again, as we talked about yesterday, Nike won't even put out a Caitlin Clark commercial, won't put out a Caitlin Clark shoe, because Nike has decided that they must bow to the angry black feminists, the Black Lives Matter movement, the feminist movement overall, the whole identity politics movement of, oh no, yes, Caitlin Clark is the biggest star in sports, but Nike, in order to promote equity and fairness and diversity and inclusion, you must spend all of your money promoting Asia Wilson, someone most people don't know exists and don't care about.
This, and a disastrous performance on the court, prompted Alyssa to enter the post-game interview looking like she was about to snap. And she kind of did, but for the wrong ways.
Honestly, it's been a lot of nonsense. I think in my 11-year career, I've never experienced the racial comments from the Indiana Fever fan base. We had her face on a serious matter that happened in this world, and it's unacceptable, honestly. And there's no place for it, and we've been professional throughout the whole entire thing, but I've never been called the things that I've been called on social media, and there's no place for it. And basketball is headed in a great direction, but nah, we don't want fans that are going to degrade us and call us racial names. I mean, we already see what's happening in the world and what we have to deal with in that aspect. And we come to play basketball for our job and it's fun, but we don't want to go to work every day and have social media blown up over things like that. It's uncalled for, and something needs to be done, whether it's them checking their fans or this league checking. There's no time for it anymore.
When a reporter finally mentioned her performance, it was as if a switch been flicked. Instead of addressing the elephant in the room, her utter absence from the playoffs, she immediately launches an attack, accusing Caitlin Clark's fans of racism. She did not imply there were only a few trolls online or that she had a difficult time coping with social media hatred. No, she went all in, condemning Clark's whole fan base as bigots who are destroying the mental health of black athletes. It was almost as if she had been sitting on this thought, waiting for the proper opportunity to let it out, hoping that someone would inquire about her flop of a game so she could turn the subject upside down. You could see it on the reporters' faces. They had no idea how to reply. Nobody questioned her for specifics or evidence. They just let her go, moving the focus away from her playoff failure to this created scandal. Instead of ripping her apart for her poor performance, everyone was suddenly preoccupied with Alyssa Thomas versus Caitlin Clark's support base. It's almost astonishing how quickly she was able to change the narrative, transforming herself from the worst kind of GOAT to a so-called victim of racist supporters.
You have to do that out of racial equity and racial justice. Don't lean into Caitlin Clark.
But you can't help but question if this was a spontaneous outburst or a premeditated ploy to deflect all of the criticism directed at her. Alyssa Thomas came out swinging, stating that she had never experienced such harassment in her 11-year career before this season. And who is she pointing fingers at? The Indiana Fever's fan base, who have been riding the Caitlin Clark hype train since her jaw-dropping rookie season began. But here's the kicker. Did she try to back up her claims with a single piece of evidence? Not a chance. There are no instances, occurrences, or even a vague tweet to draw on. Instead, she made a broad claim, indicating that the whole Fever fan base is out to destroy her mental tranquility because Caitlin Clark's sheer existence in the league is so poisonous. Nice try, Alyssa.
And all their victimhood and whining. In my 11 years, I've never dealt with what I've dealt with. You know why? Because no one cared about your league before Caitlin Clark. There were no opposing fans. You barely had home fans. And so no one cared.
Let's speak about timing here. Why reveal these bombshells just after winning a high-stakes playoff game? She was clearly desperate to shift the story even further. She knew the media would be ready to take her apart for that performance, presumably grilling her on why she gave up when her team needed her the most, or why she allowed herself to be absolutely outplayed on the season's greatest stage. Instead of facing the music, she executes the ultimate misdirection play. Shift the responsibility to Caitlin Clark's followers, and hope everyone forgets she even appeared on the court that night. How low does it go? You're advancing into the next round, but you can only think about creating chaos and problems?
But the WNBA, because it's a woke league and because it's leaned into people directing their hatred of Caitlin Clark at Caitlin Clark fans. And these WNBA players, part of their argument, why they kept Caitlin Clark off the Olympic team, we just don't want to deal with her fans and all of that would come along with Caitlin Clark. We must continue to downplay and mistreat Caitlin Clark because her fans are so toxic, and Alyssa Thomas just can't deal with it when she goes to work.
But this is when things become extremely dicey. Thomas wasn't simply targeting Clark's supporters. By naming Clark's supporters, she indirectly implicated Clark as the source of the problem. Imagine this. If Clark's influence is causing all of this hostility, she is implicitly portraying Clark as the culprit in this whole situation. But isn't Clark the one who has lifted the whole of the WNBA this year? And don't forget, this isn't the first time these two have fought. A previous event had already sparked some animosity between them. Back in August 14, 2024, during a heated game between the Indiana Fever and the Connecticut Sun, Alyssa Thomas placed what can only be regarded as the most difficult screen known to humanity on Caitlin Clark. Clark, who is known for darting around the court like a bolt of lightning, was completely caught off guard and landed hard on the floor. The impact was terrible. Fans watching live gasped, assuming she had broken an ankle or something. It was really terrible. So what did the referees do? They called an offensive foul on Thomas and then shrugged it off as if nothing happened. Nothing was reviewed, no flagrant fouls were considered.
Instead of preaching at and wagging a finger at fans over social media, turn to your teammate and say, hey, cut it out. But that's not what she's going to do or anybody's going to do. They're all going to, oh, it's Caitlin Clark, it's her fans. It's her fault, it's Caitlin. Oh, Caitlin's just this burden for the league. We don't want those types of fans.
Even several WNBA commentators and pros weighed in, including Diana Taurasi, who was blunt about how poorly the entire situation was handled. She flatly stated that Thomas should have been ejected for her irresponsible play. But did Clark herself make a big issue about it? Not a chance. She bounced straight back up, showed her usual grin, and even offered the audience a mischievous wink, as if to say, I'm good, and I'm not letting this mess me up. A classic Caitlin move. While everyone else was losing their heads at the lack of officiating, she remained cool, controlled, and unconcerned. It was a dramatic moment that just made her followers like her even more.
Her fan base is hating. It's the wrong type of fans. They tweet mean things to Alyssa Thomas. That this stuff is a joke.
But for Alyssa, that's when things started to go out of hand. Clark's followers were outraged, and they made sure Alyssa felt it online.
What everybody else has to deal with over Twitter, we're special. We're tall women who occasionally make layups. That makes us special, and we deserve a special level of treatment.
Instead of accepting responsibility for a move that might have easily harmed one of the league's brightest lights, she began portraying herself as the victim, saying that the criticism was all about race and not about her almost knocking out a rookie prodigy. It was a complete deflection, and anyone paying attention could see straight through it. The supporters were upset because she acted filthy. Simple as that. Race has nothing to do with it. However, following both of those passionate declarations, the WNBA issued a statement via social media. The WNBA is a competitive league with some of the most elite athletes in the world, according to the statement. While we welcome a growing fan base, the WNBA will not tolerate racist, derogatory, or threatening comments made about players, teams, and anyone affiliated with the league. League security is actively monitoring threat-related activity and will work directly with teams and arenas to take appropriate measures, to include involving law enforcement as necessary. During the first quarter of the second game, Fever player Caitlin Clark got into a dispute with a spectator in the second row near midcourt, prompting game officials to intervene. Officials contacted security, who removed the fan from the floor. After a little period, the fan was permitted to return. It's unclear what the fan shouted. Sides delivered her statements without prompting. In reaction to Thomas's comments, Sun coach Stephanie White remarked, "We need to do a better job. What's your take on it? Has Alyssa Thomas taken it too far? And is there something the league can do to stop this nonsense? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below."